What is the significance of these documents related to Cohen's previous testimony? To me, it is so hairy, and it doesn't help Cohen's argument that he's decided to become a good guy and tell the truth.
You know what, Stephanie? I've seen cooperating witnesses fall into this trap where they begin to believe their own righteousness. Let's face it. Michael Cohen is a liar. He's been a liar for a very long time. He's been a fixer. He's been a thug. He's been an enforcer. And he did all that for who? For Donald Trump. For a decade. You know, prosecutors don't get to pick their cooperating witnesses, because if we did, I can tell you, Steph, I would walk out the door, I'd go up to the Shiloh Baptist Church at noon on Sunday, and I would wait for the congregation to pour out and pick 3 church-going grandmothers as my witnesses. I never got to do that. I had to develop, as cooperating witnesses, thugs and killers and liars and business cheats, just like Michael Cohen is. The problem is, we do all we can to clean them up and impress upon them that they have to tell the whole truth. Don't even fudge a little bit. Don't tell a little lie, even if it's a little lie that makes Donald Trump look more guilty than he is. Why? Because then you damage your own credibility and you hurt the government's case. I think Michael Cohen has hurt the government and the country's case a little bit, because it does look like he continues to fudge. You know, when he's lived the life he's lived, it's kind of hard to purge all of this illegality and all of this sort of false life out of him. And it looks like he may have gotten caught up.
I don't know, Glenn. There's a lot of things in this world that I would consider hard. I'm not sure I think it's so hard to tell the truth. Kim, does it appear that he committed perjury? And if he did, what does that do to the rest of his testimony?
Well, he said that he never asked for a pardon. Perjury is really difficult to prove. He could say, listen, I didn't personally ask for a pardon.
Okay,
he
but
could
fine.
say,
if his lawyer did it not for, you know, giggles and fun. He did it for Michael Cohen.
So there are 2 issues here. One has to do with whether he could be charged criminally, and that's what I'm referring to. It's difficult to prove that particular case. The other has to do with his credibility in Congress, and right now I think we're moving into an era where the president's accountability for established wrongdoing, when I say established, we know from the Southern District of New York that he was part of one felony involving Michael Cohen. We don't know if there's any additional crimes or wrongdoing that Mr. Trump himself could be linked to. But it's happening now in Congress, which is a politically accountable body, and it really matters that if the American public feels that this process has integrity, because it's either probably going to come down to an impeachment process or basically throwing Mr. Trump out of office at the next election. And if that's the case, he can't then escape the statute of limitations for his own criminal liability. So it does really matter politically, regardless of whether he can be actually indicted and charged and tried for perjury. If there's a perception that he's continuing to lie, I do think that's a problem for the broader case for potential impeachment, or at least accountability for what's been happening in the White House, which under the Republicans in Congress they've turned a blind eye to.
All right, Paul, we know the cooperating witnesses are rarely the Sacred Sisters of Notre Dame. But could this be the string of hearings that are involving potentially compromised witnesses? And if that's the case, how do Democrats approach these hearings?
Well, you're exactly right, Stephanie. And as Glenn said, we used to stand in front of juries all the time and say swans don't swim in sewers. So you begin with the understanding that he's a convicted liar. Now let's look for corroborating evidence. What makes these allegations all the murkier is we have to remember, Stephanie, that these are Trump's lawyers talking to Cohen's lawyers, talking to Cohen, a lawyer, being advised by a lawyer. The public needs to hear clarification on exactly what happened here in order for him and these allegations to gain greater credibility. At the end of the day, though, what's going to win the day or fail the day as to these allegations is the corroborating evidence. What evidence is there that corroborates what it is Mr. Cohen has said? That's why Congress is right to ask for these documents. That's why the White House has to respond with the documents that they're seeking, so we can determine, is Mr. Cohen telling the truth or is he not?
Glenn, I got to ask you about Paul Manafort. It's sentencing day. What are you looking for?
You know, I'm looking for the judge to impose probably 2 decades of confinement on Paul Manafort. I say that with no glee in my voice. Anytime we sentence offenders to lengthy prison terms, it feels like a lose-lose. Lose for the victim, certainly, a lose for the defendant and his family. But, you know, this indictment really does have sort of a feel of a Lifetime Achievement Award for everything Paul Manafort has been doing, frankly, to the detriment of our national security and of America's interests. So I think we're going to see a sentence that will result in him being a guest of the Federal Bureau of Prisons for the rest of his life.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.